My son Daniel has cerebral palsy. He's brilliant, funny, and the strongest person I know. But to my family, he's just the disabled kid who ruins their perfect family photos and makes them uncomfortable at gatherings. Daniel was born with complications during delivery. The doctor said he might never walk or talk normally. They were wrong about the talking. Daniel speaks perfectly, just with a slight slur when he's excited. They were right about the walking. He uses forearm crutches and leg braces, but he gets around just fine. My wife left when Daniel was 2. She couldn't handle having a defective child, as she put it. So it's been just me and Daniel ever since, and honestly, we're better off without her. My family has never accepted Daniel. My dad, a retired construction foreman who believes weakness is a choice, treats Daniel like he's contagious. My mother goes along with whatever Dad says. My sister Janet acts like Daniel doesn't exist, and my brother Mark openly complains about having to accommodate the cripple at family events. I stopped going to most family gatherings years ago, but this Christmas, Daniel begged me to take him. Dad, I want to see Grandpa's train set again. Please. Daniel loves trains more than anything in the world. He can name every model, every engine type, every historical detail about locomotives. When he was 6, he spent an entire afternoon explaining railroad engineering to my neighbor, who happened to be a retired train conductor. The man was amazed by Daniel's knowledge. But my family just sees a kid who walks funny. Against my better judgment, I agreed to Christmas dinner. The moment we walked in, I could feel the tension. Dad barely acknowledged Daniel. Mom gave him a stiff pat on the head. Janet's kids stared at his crutches like they were afraid to catch something. Dinner was a nightmare. Daniel struggled to cut his ham with his adaptive utensils, tools that help him eat independently, which I'm incredibly proud of him for using. Mark snickered and whispered something to Janet about special needs drama. Daniel didn't hear him, thank God. He was too excited, telling everyone about the new train book I'd gotten him for Christmas. Did you know that the big boy locomotives weighed over 1 million pounds? Daniel said enthusiastically, his words slightly slurred with excitement. They had 4-8-8 four-wheel arrangements and could pull 3,600 tons over mountain grades. The table went silent. Instead of being impressed by my 8-year-old's encyclopedic knowledge, they just stared at him with barely concealed disgust. That's when Dad spoke up. Why did you bring the broken kid? The words hit me like a physical blow. Daniel's face crumpled. He understood exactly what his grandfather meant. Excuse me, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You heard me. Every family gathering, we have to watch him struggle with his food, listen to him talk weird, rearrange everything to accommodate his situation. Why can't you just get a babysitter? The entire family nodded in agreement. Even my mother, who I thought had some decency left. Janet chimed in. Honestly, it's uncomfortable for the other kids. They ask questions we don't know how to answer. Mark added, maybe it would be better if he stayed home until he can act more normal. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. My brilliant, beautiful boy was being called broken by his own family. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking with rage. We're leaving. Good, Dad muttered. Should have left him home in the first place. I helped Daniel gather his things. His hands were trembling as he put on his coat. As we walked to the door, I heard Janet say, "Thank God. Now we can actually enjoy Christmas." Daniel cried the entire drive home. Not the loud, dramatic crying of a typical 8-year-old, but the quiet, heartbroken sobs of a child who's just learned that his own family sees him as damaged goods. Am I broken, Dad? No, buddy. You're perfect. They're the ones who are broken. But the damage was done. For the next 2 days, Daniel barely spoke. He didn't want to read his train books. He didn't want to watch his favorite locomotive documentaries. He just sat in his room, staring out the window. I was furious and heartbroken. My family had destroyed my son's spirit with their cruelty, and I had no idea how to fix it. Then, on December 27th, someone knocked on our door. I opened it to find a professional-looking woman in her 50s holding an official folder. Mr. Peterson, I'm Dr. Sarah Williams from the National Science Foundation's Youth Excellence Program. My heart stopped. I'm sorry, is there some mistake? She smiled warmly. No mistake. Is Daniel home? I have some very exciting news for him. I called Daniel over. He came slowly, still moving like a beaten puppy. "Daniel," Dr. Williams said gently, "I'm here to tell you that you've been selected for something very special." She opened her folder and pulled out an official certificate. "Congratulations. You've been chosen as one of 12 children nationwide to participate in our Advanced STEM Mentorship Program. You'll be working directly with NASA engineers on real locomotive and transportation projects." Daniel's eyes went wide. NASA? Real trains. Real trains, real engineering, real science. Your application essay about magnetic levitation trains was extraordinary. We've never seen such advanced understanding from someone your age. I was confused. Application essay? We never submitted an application. Dr. Williams looked surprised. Your son's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, submitted his work along with several other students. She said Daniel's knowledge of transportation engineering was unlike anything she'd ever seen. She handed me a thick packet of information. The program includes a full scholarship to our summer engineering camp, mentorship with leading transportation experts, and an opportunity to present his research at the National Science Conference. He'll also receive a $5,000 educational grant annually until college. Daniel was practically vibrating with excitement. "Dad, can I do it? Please." "Of course, buddy. Of course you can." Dr. Williams spent another hour explaining the program. Daniel would be working with actual NASA engineers who were developing next-generation transportation systems. His research would contribute to real scientific advancement. "We specifically look for children who think differently," she explained. Daniel's unique perspective and incredible knowledge base make him exactly the kind of innovative thinker we need. After she left, Daniel was transformed. The sad, broken child from Christmas was gone, replaced by the brilliant, excited boy I knew and loved. "Dad, I'm going to work with NASA on real trains." Word spread fast in our small town. By New Year's Eve, everyone knew that Daniel Peterson, the broken kid my family was ashamed of, had been selected for a prestigious national science program. My phone started ringing. First, it was Janet. "I heard about Danielson. That's nice, I guess. Listen, I was wondering if you could talk to them about including my kids, too. They're very smart. Your kids who were afraid to be in the same room as Daniel 3 days ago." Silence. Then Mom called. "Honey, your father and I were talking, and we think we may have been too harsh at Christmas. We're proud of Daniel's accomplishment." "You mean you're embarrassed that the kid you call broken is working with NASA while your other grandkids are struggling with basic math?" More silence. Dad never called, but I heard through the grapevine that he'd been bragging to his buddies at the American Legion about his genius grandson who's working with rocket scientists. The best call came from Daniel's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. "Mr. Peterson, I've been teaching for 25 years, and I've never encountered a mind like Daniel's. The way he thinks about complex problems, his ability to see solutions that adults miss, it's extraordinary. Thank you for submitting his work. You changed his life. He changed mine too. I've learned more about engineering from Daniel than from my college courses." 6 months later, Daniel presented his research on magnetic levitation transportation at the National Science Conference. His presentation was titled Adaptive Engineering: How Physical Challenges Inspire Innovation. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. The local newspaper ran a front-page story. "Local boy chosen by NASA, 8-year-old's disability fuels engineering breakthrough." That's when my family really panicked. Janet showed up at our house with her kids, suddenly eager for them to spend time with their brilliant cousin. Mark called asking if Daniel could tutor his daughter in math. Mom wanted to throw Daniel a belated birthday party and invite everyone who matters in town. Dad actually had the nerve to ask if he could attend Daniel's next NASA presentation. "I want to be there to support my grandson," he said. "Your grandson who you call broken?" "I never said that." "Yes, you did. In front of the entire family." Daniel heard every word. "Look, I may have spoken harshly, but I always knew the boy was smart." "No, you didn't. You saw a disabled child and decided he was worthless. Now you see a NASA-recognized genius and want to claim credit." The truth was, I didn't want any of them around Daniel anymore. My son had found his tribe, brilliant scientists and engineers who valued his mind and respected his differences. He had Dr. Williams as a mentor fellow young scientists as friends, and a future that was brighter than any of us had imagined. Daniel didn't need grandparents who saw him as broken. He had colleagues who saw him as extraordinary. 3 months ago, Daniel received another honor. NASA invited him to tour their facilities and meet the engineers working on the next generation of space transportation. The local news covered the story, interviewing Daniel about his dreams and aspirations. "People think being different makes you less," Daniel said into the camera, his voice clear and confident. "But sometimes being different is what makes you more." My family watched that interview. They saw their neighbors, their friends, their entire community celebrating the boy they called broken. Janet's kids now brag at school about being related to Daniel the NASA kid. Mark tells everyone at work about his genius nephew. Mom frames Daniel's newspaper articles and shows them to strangers at the grocery store. Dad bought a NASA baseball cap. But Daniel knows the truth. He remembers Christmas dinner. He remembers being called broken. And he's learned that the people who matter are the ones who see your brilliance, even when it comes in an unexpected package. Last week, Daniel received his acceptance letter to MIT's summer program for gifted youth. He's 8 years old, and he's already been accepted to study at one of the world's most prestigious universities. When I told him the news, he hugged me tight. "Dad, remember when Grandpa called me broken?" "Yes, buddy. I'm glad he was wrong. But I'm more glad that you always knew he was wrong." My family spent years seeing disability where they should have seen ability. They saw broken where they should have seen brilliant. They saw less where they should have seen extraordinary. Now they see newspaper headlines, NASA partnerships, and MIT acceptance letters. They see reflected glory and bragging rights. But Daniel and I see something else. The difference between people who love you when you succeed and people who love you when others say you're not worth loving. The first kind will always disappoint you. The second kind will change your life.